Okay, we are live. Oh, what am I sharing? Am I sharing the PPT or the live?
PPT only.
So everyone can see the PPT, right? Oh, I'm echoing. Damn. Oh, what am I sharing? Am I sharing the PPT or the live?
PPT.
You're sharing your screen, right, Mataji? That's what we are seeing. That's the PPT.
Okay. Sharing. Am I sharing the PPT? Should we start? Or we'll wait for 2 more minutes?
2 more minutes, Mataji, 7:25.
Yeah. No. Okay, so thank you all so much for joining us today. We are continuing our study of Sri Isopanishad, and today we'll be covering verses 12 to 14. So we're covering 3 verses today, and as we said earlier, we are planning to club some verses and finish up Isopanishad in the next 2 weeks, after which we'll come up with a very interesting new course. So we'll start with the prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschayati Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So before we head into the verses, we have to see a quick summary of what happened last time. So in the previous session, you heard from Her Grace Indulekha Karuna Mataji. She covered verses 10 and 11, but she summarized the verses 9 through 11. So 9 through 11 can be clubbed together because the concept or the content that was delivered in these 3 verses are very similar. So mantra 9, 10 and 11 spoke about avidya and vidya and the result that one gets from these 2. So in mantra 9, avidya was defined as the ignorant in pursuit of sense gratification, while vidya is knowledge in pursuit of sense gratification. And the result is that it takes one to darkness. In mantra 10, avidya was knowledge for pursuit of sense gratification. And vidya was knowledge for pursuit of Krishna consciousness. And the result is that vidya gives one result and avidya gives another result. So that is what we saw from mantra 10. In mantra 11, we saw avidya is knowledge for bodily maintenance. Vidya is knowledge for pursuit of Krishna consciousness, and the result is that together, when they function together, they grant immortality. So there should be a proper mix of bodily maintenance as well as knowledge in pursuit of Krishna consciousness. So that was the summary of what she spoke in the previous session, that it's needed both. You need both to be running in parallel tracks. Avidya, that is, so basically you need some bodily maintenance, but real knowledge is actually knowledge in pursuit of Krishna consciousness. So that is what we saw in our previous sessions. And we're just going to move forward from this concept of vidya and avidya. So we'll be covering verses 12, 13, and 14. So what is 12, 13, and 14 going to cover? Verse 12 will be talking about sambhuti and asambhuti. Now we'll define what sambhuti is and what asambhuti is very soon. Verse 13 is going to talk about the results of sambhuti and asambhuti. And verse 14 is going to talk about knowing sambhuti and asambhuti, what one must do. So these are the 3 verses, and these are the 3 single line statements that define these 3 verses. So in the first verse, we will get an introduction to sambhuti and asambhuti. In the second verse, we'll see the results of sambhuti and asambhuti. And in the third, we will know what sambhuti and asambhuti really land us in, or what we should pursue after knowing sambhuti and asambhuti. So without using such terminology that is baffling, we'll get into simple terms and we'll try to understand verse number 12. Andam tamaha pravishyanti ye asambhutim upasate tato bhuya iva te tamo ya usambhutyam rataha. Those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance, and still more so do the worshippers of the impersonal absolute. So it's interesting that this verse talks about sambhuti and asambhuti. So that's where the definition comes from. It comes from this verse. Sambhuti means one who is completely independent, and asambhuti is one who doesn't have that independence. So if you look at the translation of this verse, it talks that it says that asambhuti are the demigods, meaning the demigods do not have complete independence. So if one worships the demigods, where are they going? They are going to the darkest region of ignorance. Anda tamaha pravishanti. So andham means, you all know, is blind, right? Dark. Tamaha, obviously ignorance or darkness. Andam tamaha pravishyanti ye asambhutim upasate. Asambhuti are the demigods. So if you're doing upasana or you're worshipping the demigods, then where are you going? You're going to the darkest region of ignorance. But however, tato bhuya iva te tamo yayu sambhutim rataha. But still more, they go into a deeper darkness if they are the worshippers of this sambhuti, of this independent absolute. But here specifically, that independent absolute is the impersonal absolute, because that will get clarified as we keep reading. So the acharyas have decoded this, and they tell us that those who are engaged in worshipping the demigods are entering into dark regions. But still more, even more dark are those who are actually the worshippers of the absolute, impersonal absolute. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he clarifies this. He says, actually, absolute truth, he's actually a person. It's not that the absolute truth is impersonal. Lord Krishna, he has a form, he has a name, Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela. Everything is complete in Krishna. He's got a beautiful form, he has a lovely name, he's got so many names. He performs lovely pastimes, and he's an abode of all wonderful qualities. So such a personal, God, that is the absolute. Actually, he is the absolute. But he has an effulgence. Many people, they think that this effulgence is the ultimate. So by speculation, they think that the absolute is completely formless and has no qualities. This thought is actually the mode of ignorance. So that is what this verse is trying to tell us. If you are under the impression that God is impersonal, he doesn't have any qualities, any form, any feelings, then that is the greatest of all ignorance. However, the absolute truth in reality is the origin of all powers, and he's the source of everything. He's the very source of the entire effulgence. That impersonal absolute has its source in that beautiful form called as Krishna. So Krishna is the origin of all powers, and everything else is under him. Okay, even if his effulgence actually belongs to him. So, we talk about sun and sunlight. So the sunlight is actually coming from the sun, right? So the sun is the source of sunlight. Similarly, Krishna is the source of his effulgence, which is the impersonal Brahman. And from Krishna, so many things emanate. What are some things that emanate from him? Even the demigods are actually emanating from him. So he's the source of not only that impersonal Brahman, but he's also the source of so many different demigods and sages and everybody else. So when you worship the demigods, of course, it's not something permanent, right? The results that you gain is not permanent, and you're going to be stuck in this material world. So you enter the world of darkness. However, if you think that, the impersonal is greater and better, it's not so. Even then, you are gaining a worse result. So it's interesting that, demigods, they have no independence. They are described here as asambhuti, no independence. And some of the demigods, they even consider Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be another powerful demigod, and they consider Brahman to be the absolute. Now, this misconception is not only for human beings like us. Such misconceptions are seen even in the higher planetary systems. So it's kind of widely spread, this misconception. But however, it is not correct. Sri Isopanishad, it defeats that understanding that the impersonal is everything. Atheists, they deny the very existence of God. Some others, they think everything is impersonal. However, the devotees are the only ones who have the correct understanding of who the Supreme is, the Supreme Absolute Truth is. And the Supreme Absolute Truth is that personal form of Krishna from whom everything else emanates. So, in fact, as we delve further into Sri Isopanishad, we'll see the request of how, in that Isopanishad, there's a mantra where we are requesting the Lord to remove the dazzling effulgence so that we can see the beautiful form of the Lord. So these different mantras of the Isopanishad, they should be seen together, okay? One mantra will lead to the other. So the understanding becomes more and more clear as we read the verses of Sri Isopanishad. So we should not take out just one verse separately and then try to decode it. We'll never understand the meaning if we don't see it in totality. That's why we have a bunch of verses together today. And similarly, we'll see a bunch of verses tomorrow. Just like what happened in the previous session, you had 3 verses, or rather 2 verses together, because they were all connected. They're slowly, gradually giving the definition of Vidya and Avidya, right? So like that, here we gradually understand the perfect identity of the absolute truth. Okay, so this is a very beautiful story that I wanted to tell about understanding that Krishna is the source of everything, and it is not the impersonal effulgence that is the absolute. So the absolute is indeed the form of the Lord. So to justify or to give strength to this point, there is a very beautiful story in Puranas. And in the Itihasas as well. For example, in the Mahabharata and the Narayaniya section, there is a story of 3 brothers by the name Ekta, Dvita, and Trita. Ek, do, teen, like that. Ekta, Dvita, Trita. The 3 of them, they actually decided to go to Shvetadweep. Now, Shvetadweep within this universe is where Kshirodakashayi Vishnu lies in the ocean of milk, right? So he lies in the ocean of milk, and oftentimes demigods, they go to the Shira of the ocean and they pray for the Supreme Lord to descend. So Kshirodakashayi Vishnu is like a doorway. This is a nice analogy. There are so many incarnations and so many forms of the Lord. So whenever the Lord has to descend, he can descend as Krishna, he can descend as Rama, he can descend in his various forms. Whenever he decides to descend from the spiritual world and enter into the material universe, take an incarnation as we call it, he descends through this doorway of Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. Because you will see again and again, be it the Bhagavatam or the Srimad Valmiki Ramayana, you'll see that demigods, they would go and they would pray in the shores of the milk ocean, requesting that Vishnu, that Kshirodakashayi Vishnu to actually descend. And it would appear like as if Kshirodakashayi Vishnu is the source of all incarnations. But actually, he's like a midpoint, like a gateway. So through him, the different incarnations, they descend. That's how it is understood. So like that, it so happened that some sages by the name Ekta, Dvita, and Trita, they decided to go to the Shvetadweep, where Lord Vishnu reclines in the ocean of milk. So they went there and they were engaged in great tapasya. Okay, you must have heard in all these pastimes when demigods go and offer prayers to Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. At that time, what happens? He doesn't come and give them free darshan or something. Brahma hears a voice in the sky. Kshirodakashayi Vishnu tells him, I will descend. That's how he communicates, right? It's not like they all get free darshan. It's not possible there. He doesn't give darshan that easily, even to the demigods. Now, these 3 sages, they were performing austerities so that they could see the Lord face to face. But then the Lord did not appear in front of them. And then, as always, as usual, as expected, he spoke in an invisible voice. And he told them, you're trying to see me like this, but the conception of God you have in your mind is very impersonal. You're thinking that the Supreme Absolute Truth is impersonal. Unless and until you have pure devotion in your heart, I will not be revealed to you. The actual form of my real form is personal. That is me. That is something that you're desiring to see. But that can be seen only with pure devotion. As long as you have this mind filled with jnana and you have this conception of impersonalism, I cannot be revealed to you. Incapable of being seen in consequence of his dazzling effulgence, that illustrious deity can be held by those persons that in course of long ages succeed in devoting themselves wholly and solely to him. So this is what Mahavishnu, or sorry, Vishnu actually tells the sages, that you have to first perform devotional service and then you will understand my true identity. So this is a very nice story to just tell us that actually the form, the personal form of the Lord is indeed the source of that effulgence. And if we have this misconception that the Absolute is formless, it is very, very difficult for us to see the actual form of the Lord. And the actual form of the Lord can actually be seen only if you have devotion in your heart. So, worshippers. So we were talking about worshippers of impersonal Brahman and the worshippers of demigods, right? We were talking about their destinations. Now, generally, worshippers of demigods, they actually just traverse in and around this universe. So if you are a very nice devotee of any demigod, it's okay. But the problem is you're not going to get out of this material world. To travel to higher planetary systems, there are three methods. You can either take a spaceship and go to a different planet like they're doing today, or you can attain different planets by practicing certain mystic perfections. You can do space travel and you can do remote distance traveling and all sorts of things if you have acquired mystic powers. The third method of traveling is actually by doing demigod worship. If you're a very strict devotee of some demigod, you will get blessed by that demigod and you can in fact go and reside in the planet of the demigod. So this is very much possible. But we must understand that all these planets that we are going to go is still within this material world itself. This material universe consisting of 14 planetary systems is actually very dark. It is like the example is given of that of a coconut. So if you see a coconut, you see a broken coconut in the center here in this picture. Actually, a coconut inside the shell, if it is closed, okay, like the coconuts in the surrounding area in this picture, they are all closed. Inside, you can imagine that the coconut itself would be dark. And half of the coconut, the bottom half, will be filled with water, with coconut water, right? So like that, this universe itself, this universal shell is actually very dark. And the bottom half is filled with water called as the Garbhodak ocean. And on top of that, we have Garbhodakashayi Vishnu lying down, and then from his navel, Brahma comes up, and then you see the 14 universes within this entire Brahmanda. So this entire Brahmanda is somewhat dark, and it's a thick shell. So actually, we are stuck here. These 14 planetary systems are within this shell. And bottom part is water, just like how a coconut is. Okay. Now, I said this universe is dark, but however, sun and moon are there for illumination. However, it is not ever effulgent. It is not, it is not self-effulgent like the spiritual world. So from demigod worship, we can travel within this universe, within the 14 planetary systems. But however, we cannot attain that eternal life full of bliss and knowledge. That is not possible. Unless we break open the shell and we get out of this universe, we cannot attain a life full of eternity. So if we really want to attain eternal life, eternal happiness, it is not available within this world. Okay, so just doing demigod worship is not going to grant liberation, nor is just worshipping impersonal Brahman doing much good for you. Actually, our desire should be to break out of this shell and not just go to some light, but actually to traverse to a specific place, which is called as the spiritual world, which is known as Goloka Vrindavan, or which is known as Vaikuntha, which is self-effulgent and which is eternally present. So that is the place that we desire to go. You all know in Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuvana Lokanam Punaravartino Arjuna Mamupete Kaunteya Punarjanma na Vidyate. So once you have attained that place, there is no question of rebirth or no question of coming back. But however, even if you go up till Brahma's planet, there is every possibility that you will fall down and you will keep circulating within this 14 planetary systems, or maybe another Brahmanda, which is very much within this material realm. Okay, so that is what is actually emphasized in this verse again and again. Both these are not going to do great good for you. And one may question, so why is it in the first place that you may want to get diverted, you might not want to worship the Supreme Lord, and you might want to worship the impersonal Brahman or the demigods? The reason is because most of us, or most people in this world, are pseudo-religionists, okay? And Prabhupada, again at the purport, he talks about what pseudo-religionists are. So what do? They seek fame in the garb of religion. This is very common. So if you want to become very famous, you have to become a big sannyasi, and then you have tons of followers, right? So that is a quality of a pseudo-religionist, like you see in this picture. Some others, they don't do it just for fame. They do it because they just don't want to go to the spiritual world. They think, oh, why should I serve somebody? Why should I serve the Supreme Lord? I want to get all the service. I want to be the leader. I want to get all the service. Why should I go and serve some God? I want to be God, right? So that kind of attitude, if you have, obviously we become a pseudo-religionist. And some others, they are led by atheists and impersonalists. They just get carried away by the jugglery of words. The others, they have no knowledge of detachment. They don't understand what detachment is. They are overly attached to things of this world. They love to live in the golden shackles of bondage. It's interesting because here it is mentioned, it is golden shackles of bondage. Because anyone in this world, within this material universe, is in bondage. Whether you are shackled by golden chains or silver chains or bronze chains, you are very much inside this material universe. A person in the jail, whether you put shackles around his hands, okay, you just tie up his hands. How does it matter what sort of shackles you put? Just because you put gold shackles, it's not that he's going to be very happy, right? So like that, in this material world, we are all tied up. Some of us are very comfortable materially. Some of us may not be so comfortable. Some of us may be living a middle class life. But ultimately, each one of us, we are all shackled in this world of bondage. So many of us are like that. We have no detachment and we love to be shackled in this bondage. While some others, they present a show of bhakti by violating dharma. This is also very common. They appear to be great devotees, great representatives of different paths of religion, but simultaneously they would be violating dharma, meaning they do not practice what they teach. They show like as if they're great devotees. They may faint on the stage and they may show all sorts of ecstatic symptoms, but inside they might be thinking about something else. They might be thinking about taking advantage of others. So these are another set of people. So generally, many pseudo-religionists are there. Many of them, they have no respect for our acharyas. They think they are all in all. So why should I take a guru? I will directly connect with God. Yes, to an extent, yes, everyone has the Paramatma in their heart, but still the guru shows the way. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we are actually in the dark. We need someone to show us the way, to show the torchlight. If someone is not showing the torchlight in the dark, it's very difficult for us to find our way. We are going to go and crash into furniture and all of that. We're not going to find our way out easily. So we need respect. We need to respect acharyas. We need to take up gurus. Some others, they themselves pose as gurus, though they do not have any qualification of being a guru. And others, they want to just escape all the laws, of God. See, actually, it's easy to escape the laws of state, but it is not easy to escape the laws of God, because karma will never leave us. So like this, there are so many different pseudo-religionists, and that is the reason why there is so much diversion in this material world. These are all different qualities that is there inherent within us. And to an extent, we can actually identify this quality of pseudo-religionism within ourselves as well. Sometimes we really don't, we are not, at least I can say for myself, that not really pure, because we have so many of these anarthas hidden in our heart, and we can pose in so many different ways. But however, the focus is that, we should not get diverted, and we should try to focus on that absolute truth. So that is what verse number 12 was speaking about. What did verse 12 talk about? It spoke about sambhuti and asambhuti. Sambhuti means one who is independent. Asambhuti means one who is not independent. What did we see? We saw demigods are asambhuti. Even you and me are asambhuti. Only the Supreme Lord is independent. Only he is sambhuti. But we should not get confused. We should not think that the Supreme Lord is just impersonal. No, impersonalism is a feature of the Supreme Lord. But actually, in reality, the completeness or the real absolute truth in its complete form is a personal God. If you are stuck to this concept of impersonalism, then what happens? You will be very much like in the situation of Ekta, Dvita, and Trita sages. Okay. So now we'll move on to verse number 13. What are the results of Sambhuti and Asambhuti worship? Okay. Anyad evahu sambhavat, anyad ahura sambhavat, iti sushruma dhiranam yenastad vichakshire. It is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and another result is obtained by worshipping that which is not the supreme. All this is heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it. So I think this is common sense, right? So if you are worshipping the cause of all causes, you will attain one result. But if you are not worshipping the Supreme Lord, if you're worshipping something other than the Supreme Lord, who is not the cause of all causes, you will get a different result. So here, this is a nice quote. If you want different results, do not do the same things, right? So if, the famous analogy of Srila Prabhupada, all paths do not lead to the same goal. So if you want to go to Delhi, you purchase a ticket to Delhi. If you want to go to Hyderabad, you get a ticket to Hyderabad. You cannot take a ticket to Hyderabad, board on a train that goes to Hyderabad and think that you're going to, or desire that you're going to Delhi. It's not going to happen. The same thing even Krishna tells in the Bhagavad Gita 9.25. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors will go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. And those who worship me will come and live with me. So it's very straightforward. This is what Krishna has told in the Bhagavad Gita as well. And even in real world situations, real life situations, you go through that all the time, right? Wherever you want, if you're heading out in bus number 22C and 22C is going to take you to one particular location in Dallas, you will go there only. You're not going to go elsewhere, right? So similarly, when you worship demigods, you will attain the planet of demigods. You want to be stuck in this material world. If that is your desire, you will be stuck in this material world. There is no question of going back or going out of this material world and attaining the spiritual world. So this Supreme Lord, who's Sambhuta, or he's Sambhuta means the Supreme Lord, is very difficult to understand. If nobody understands him in full. It's very difficult to understand Krishna. In Bhagavatam, Brahma actually he offers a prayer to Krishna during the Brahma Vimohan Leela. He tells, Some people think that they know everything about you. Let them think like that, but I really don't know anything about you. See, Brahma, who's the engineer of this universe, is boldly claiming, I don't know anything about you. Then who are we? So it's difficult to understand Krishna, but we must know that that is the right destination. To go and live with Krishna is actually the right destination. How do we attain that right destination? First thing is we must be cleansed. We have so many anarthas. Our heart requires heavy, 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 heavy cleaning. And you all know the method of cleansing is obviously chanting the holy names and hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Every single day we must hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, or at least read a little bit of Srimad Bhagavatam. That's the method of cleansing the heart. Of course, we have to chant our regular rounds, which also cleanses the heart. Not only cleansing the heart. Once you cleanse your heart, you should also slowly develop more and more intense faith in Krishna. See, that is something that should be cultivated. One may think that faith in Krishna will come automatically. Yes, to an extent it will come automatically, but also we should put a conscious effort. In our everyday life, sometimes it's very easy for us to lose faith in Krishna, but you should put constant effort to actually develop that faith in Krishna. How do you put that effort to develop faith in Krishna? By hearing from the right source. Everything is connected. If you want cleansing, you have to hear. If you want to intensify your faith, you must hear from the right source. Hearing, just not any hearing, not hearing Bhagavatam from anywhere and anybody. You should hear from the right source who's in proper parampara, from a perfect acharya, a devotee who's clean in heart. So unless that devotee is clean in heart, that is not going to rub on to us, right? So anybody can speak Harikatha, anybody can speak Srimad Bhagavatam, but very few people will move our hearts. So it's very important to hear in proper parampara and to be adhering to a particular acharya so that we can hear without any misinterpretations. So this is the process. To reach the highest destination, you have to be cleansed. You should have faith in Krishna. You should hear from the right source, adhere to proper parampara, and acharya should be in a proper parampara. He should be a proper devotee who's teaching without any misconceptions. Then we can actually reach the highest destination. We will not be stuck within this material world. So here is the very famous story of Vrikasura. This is a story from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th canto. Very famous story. Famous means what? Many people know the story in various ways. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is narrated as the story of Vrikasura. There was a demon by the name Vrikasura. He is known as in other names like Bhasmasura and other names from different other scriptures. But Bhagavatam, this is the version of Srimad Bhagavatam. So there was a great demon. He was very, very powerful. He wanted to become the ultimate controller. That was his desire. He wanted to become the Lord of the Lords. That was his desire. So he began performing severe austerities. And you know whom he was performing austerities to please? He heard, he once met Narada Muni. Bhagavatam says that he met Narada Muni. And he asked Narada, so who is the easiest to please? I want to worship him and I want to get desires. So Narada Muni told him, okay, why don't you try Lord Shiva? He's known as Ashutosh, so you can try. So this Vrikasura, he ended up performing such severe austerities that he would chop off pieces of flesh from his body and he would offer it as an oblation to please Lord Shiva. Of course, Lord Shiva is not going to be pleased by all this. But this went on for a very long time. And at one point, he was seeing that Lord Shiva was not appearing in front of him. So he decided to take a knife and actually chop off his head and give it as an offering to Lord Shiva. So at that time, finally, just before he could chop off his head, Lord Shiva comes and he stops him. Like you see in this picture, he stops him and he says, okay, what do you want? He says, no, I want benedictions from you. Lord Shiva was telling him, why did you have to chop off pieces of flesh? I'm just pleased with a little water. Where's the need for all this? But then Vrikasura, he gets up and he says that, because he wanted to be the controller of everyone. He wanted the entire universe to be under his feet. So he said, oh, my dear Lord, the person whose head I touch should, his head should break into pieces, or he should be destroyed. So that is the kind of boon that I want. And Lord Shiva, he smiled, Bhagavatam says, because he knows that something else is going to happen to him. So Lord Shiva smiles and he says, Tathastu, okay, get the boon, take it. And interestingly, this Vrakasura was such a fallen demon that he dared to put his hand on Lord Shiva to test Lord Shiva. He tried to do that, and Lord Shiva was baffled. He didn't understand what's happening, and he started running. He ran everywhere. He ran finally to Vaikuntha, and then Lord Vishnu, he came in the form of a Brahmana boy. So he comes in the form of a Brahmana boy, and he talks to this Vrakasura, and he tells him, "Oh, you're, what's happening with you? What's up with you? And why so much austerities? What did you try to do?" And Vrakasura says that he got a boon from Lord Shiva. And Vishnu says, "Oh, you got a boon from Lord Shiva?" He comes as a little Brahmin boy, and he tries to confuse Vrakasura. He tells him, "You should not believe Lord Shiva. He is the Lord of ghosts and goblins, and you have trust in such a person. You should actually test your boon. Why don't you touch your own head? And then if the boon works, then you can believe him." So he was just, demons, sometimes they don't have brains. Srila Prabhupada also talks about it. Sometimes they just get carried away. So he just touches his head, and his head bursts into pieces, like you see here in this picture. I thought they were very sweet clip arts of Vrakasura all over the internet. So he touches his head, and then he bursts into flames. He bursts into pieces. And then Lord Vishnu, he goes and talks to Shiva, and he tells him, "Look at these demons, how much advantage they take of people." And and then Lord Shiva is very, very pleased with the very sweet interaction that Lord Vishnu had. So it's a nice story for us to remember a few things. One is, sometimes we get so eluded very easily with the attractions of this world. We are all demoniac to a great extent. Of course, we are not Vrakasura, but still we have several demoniac propensities. And with a desire for so many things, of this world, it's not going to take us very far. We are going to be stuck in this material universe. And secondly, unless you're completely surrendered to Sambhuta, who is the Supreme Lord, who's the Supreme Independent Lord, nobody can be saved. You can go and surrender to anybody, yet it's not going to help much. Unless and until you surrender to the Supreme Lord, we have no hope. So till we make that wholehearted surrender to that independent Supreme Lord, we'll still be in this material universe. So if we want to go to the spiritual world, if you want to get out of the cycle of birth and death, where should you surrender? You should surrender to that Sambhuta, to that independent Lord who is Sri Krishna. So that is the person you're aiming for. That is the person you must actually surrender to. There is no point running around in this material universe catching the legs of every other person or any other demigod. It's not going to work. So this was the story of Vrakasura trying to explain about the results that is gained by worshipping Sambhuta and Asambhuta. So Krishna, he's the supreme cause. He's called as Sambhavat. Now, when we say Krishna is the supreme cause, he's the absolute independent, he is Sambhuta, he is Sambhavat, all this, we are not just telling it because we have some sentiment for Krishna. Rather, all this is spoken based on Shastric references. Throughout the scriptures, right from the Vedas to the Upanishads, to the Puranas, to the Itihasas, everywhere, the Supreme Lord is very, very clearly mentioned as Sri Krishna, Narayana. He is considered as the Supreme Lord everywhere, throughout all Vedic literature. And he's the very source and enlightener of the entire universe. The very first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Many of you must have memorized that, right? Janmadhyasya yatonvayaditaras charteshvabhijñā swara tene brahma hridaya adikavaye muhyanti yat surayah. So he's the enlightener, right? He enlightened Brahma, that's what you heard. And he is the source of everything. Janmadhyasya yatonvayaditaratas. So like that, not only Bhagavatam, every other scripture you read in and out. Srila Madhvacharya, he says that after reading all the scriptures, one will very clearly come to the conclusion that the Supreme Lord is Sri Krishna or Narayana. This is consistent through all the scriptures. Of course, we have several scriptures glorifying different demigods, but in totality, when you read all of them together, you can come up only to one conclusion, that Narayana is beyond this material creation, or Lord Sri Krishna is the source of everything. The supreme absolute truth is Devaki Putra. He is the supreme absolute truth. Even Shankaracharya, he accepted that Narayana is the supreme cause. Though he is an impersonalist, he accepts that only Narayana is beyond this universal affairs. So Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he himself tells, Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. He doesn't say you do little Sharanam towards Indra, a little 50% to Chandra, 40% to Shiva, another 20% to Ganesh, and the remaining 2% you do to me. Or he doesn't say do 90% to me, 10% here and there you give. No, he says Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. 100% you have to surrender only to me. Only if you surrender to me, you can actually be relieved from all sins. Do not fear, right? So that is what Krishna says. So Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita, he says this. All the scripture, they point to this. All our acharyas, they also point to the same thing. Then what more do we want? So we should have the firm conviction that Krishna is the supreme, and the intelligent, hearing from the words of the acharyas, will understand this fact and they will worship Krishna with love. So such people are called as Buddha, or the intelligent ones. So what did we understand so far? We understood that actually it is Krishna who should be worshipped, and we should surrender to that supreme absolute independent. Okay, and what is the process of surrender? Again, the process of surrender is through chanting and hearing. The more you chant and hear, the more we develop that firm faith that Krishna is everything, and we desire to surrender unto him. So this is another beautiful process that is mentioned in the purport. Hearing about Krishna draws his attention. Krishna gives direction and cleanses the heart. When your heart is cleansed, what happens? You attain the mode of goodness. And when you're in the mode of goodness, what happens? You're very happy to perform bhakti. Unless you're in the mode of goodness, your desire to perform bhakti will not be there. Okay, so you have to first come to the mode of goodness. Then you'll be very happy to perform bhakti. And the more you perform bhakti, the signs of God is unveiled within the heart. Then you become freed from all material attachments. Slowly, all the doubts in the mind are cleared by the Lord's grace. And eventually, you will become a liberated soul, and you will see Krishna in every step of life. So such a beautiful chain of processes. First thing is you must hear. Okay, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnoho, Smaranam. Everything begins with hearing. So you must hear about Krishna with attention. Then Krishna will give direction within the heart. He will clean the heart. You will attain the mode of goodness. And as you attain the mode of goodness, you will derive so much happiness in performing bhakti. You'll be waiting, when will I perform devotional service? And as and when you perform devotional service, the more you perform devotional service, you're getting the signs of God is unveiled within the heart, and you're getting freed from material attachments. And as you're getting freed from material attachment, all the doubts you've been having for all these days are all getting cleared out, and you become a liberated soul. And constantly you will be thinking about serving Krishna in every moment of your life. So to attain that perfection, we have two enemies. One is passion, the other one is ignorance. Passion means over-attachment to things that are not related to Krishna, and ignorance is not really knowing about the Lord properly. So these two are the villains in our life. Now, how do we overcome these two villains? By taking shelter of the hero, right? So you take shelter of the mode of goodness. How do you take shelter of the mode of goodness? We have to constantly chant and hear. Then we can attain perfection. We can know Krishna by hearing about him. And once we understand Krishna, we can actually go back to the spiritual world. Okay, so we can attain the correct destination. So what did this verse talk about? It spoke about the results of worshipping Sambhuti and Asambhuti. And we found out that different, I mean, whatever process you take, that particular destination you will reach. Okay, if I want mystic power, I will practice certain mystic powers and I'll be in this material world. But if I want love of Godhead, I will practice Krishna consciousness and I will go back to Godhead. That is what this verse is saying. Now, there is this highlighted verse. Okay, this is like putting this verse weaves all the concepts that we have seen so far. Verse number 14, knowing Sambhuti and Asambhuti. Sambhutim cha vinasham cha yastad vedo bhayam saha vinashena mrityum titva sambhutyamritam ashnute. One should know perfectly the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna and his transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes, as well as the temporary material creation with its temporary demigods, men and animals. When one knows these, he surpasses death and the ephemeral cosmic manifestation with it, and in the eternal kingdom of God, he enjoys his eternal life of bliss and knowledge. So, Sambhutim cha vinasham cha. So not only should you know Sambhuti, here is a interesting point that we were talking about. Oh, we should know Krishna, we should do chanting, we should do hearing, we should become purified. We spoke about all that. Is that enough? You should know both. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, we say this. You should understand this tree and you should cut it out with great determination. 15th chapter, if you all remember. Adas Chodvam Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, Balavrinda, she wants to chant the verse. 15th chapter verses. There are a couple of initial verses that talk about the banyan tree. Okay, I think she's not there. But anyway, so we should know. We should actually understand this material world as well.
Krishna Mataji, you called me, right?
Yeah, no, I was just curious to see if you wanted to chant the first two verses of 15th chapter.
Chapter.
Right.
Okay, Mataji, can I say the verses?
Yeah, Urdhva Mula Madashakam. Go ahead.
Urdhva Shagam Ashwadam Brahmuravayam Jantam Yasya Varnani Tasyam Veda Saveda Vid Adashodam Prakudasya Shaka Guna Pravidda Vishaya Pavala Adasya Mulaya Shantatani Karmanubandini Manushaloke.
Then?
Narupamase dadopalabhyate nado na jane na je sampradishta asvaddamena suvirudamulam asanga shastrena brudena chitra.
Shastrena Dridena Chitva. Very nice. Thank you so much, Balavrinda. So there's a description of this imperishable banyan tree and what the leaves are, what the branches are, and how with firm determination we should cut it down, right? So we should actually know what this material world is, what it has for us, because it's nice to see the good side of things, but to develop detachment, you should understand that this world is not a very conducive place for us. So unless we come to that understanding, it's not a very pleasant place. We will not develop detachment from this place. Therefore, in this verse, it is said, one should know perfectly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and his transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes, as well as the temporary material creation with its temporary demigods, men and animals. Then one who knows these, he has surpassed death and the ephemeral cosmic manifestation with it. And in the eternal kingdom of God, he enjoys his eternal blissful life of bliss and knowledge. So Krishna also, again in the Bhagavad Gita, he tells us that, like once you come here, you will never go back. He tells that, right? So if I don't want to go to a place, that means I must really not like that place. So to really not like that place also, you should know about that place, right? Otherwise, how will you not like it? So that's why this verse says you should know about both. Sambhutim cha vinasham cha yas tad vedobhyam saha. You should know about both. Vinashena mrityum tirtva sambhutyamritam ashnute. So unless you understand these two, you cannot go and have the sambhutya amritam. Amritam is deathlessness, right? Yeah, once you go to the sambhuti, once you go to the eternal world, the spiritual world, you're deathless. You cannot enjoy ashnute if you do not understand what this world is actually all about. So the formula for success is to actually understand Krishna perfectly and desire to go back to Krishna. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattas sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddhabhava samanvitaha. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Krishna is the absolute source. Everything is coming from Krishna. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this perfectly engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So it is important to understand what this material world is, what the spiritual world is, who is the source of both, from whom everything is coming. And we should have the perfect understanding that if we go there, if we attain that source, then we will be all perfect. So this material universe is called as Martya Loka. Martya Loka means the world of death, actually. Why? Because it's impermanent. Life in this material world is never permanent. We should end the cycle. Once, actually, I remember this. I had this Goloka chart, displayed in the house on the wall, on one of the walls. And there was a helper who came to clean the house. And she was always very curious about Krishna consciousness. She actually, this happened in Atlanta some 5 years ago. And she had heard about reincarnation. So she was a staunch Christian. And she heard about reincarnation. And she was asking questions about reincarnation. So she kept telling, oh, yeah, I know you Hindus, you believe in reincarnation. But somehow I never understand this concept of reincarnation. What's the point of just going, like from one birth to the other, one birth to the other? What are you gaining out of this? So you keep doing this all forever? Is that the ultimate aim of life, just running in circles? I mean, the point is they know what reincarnation is, but they had not heard, rather, at least she had not heard about getting out of this entanglement, getting out of this material universe. So that was something totally new to her. She was like, her focus when she was asking me is that you're just going around in cycles. We are better. We just talk about heaven and hell. That was her point. But then I had to tell her, look at this chart. That top place that you see there, that is Goloka, Vrindavan, and Vaikuntha. These are the locations that is beyond this universe. So the goal is not to run in cycles. Rather, the goal is to actually go beyond this universe and go to that spiritual world. So karma or reincarnation, ultimately it has an end point. It has an end point. We do say that karma is cyclic. We accrue karma, we gain positive karma, then again we have to take birth. We gain negative karma, again we have to take birth. But is there an end? Yes, there is an end. There is an end. You can break free and you can go back to the spiritual world. How? The process is by taking up to Krishna consciousness. So we should desire to get that knowledge, and we should get that knowledge of eternal life. We should read scriptures. That's why we have the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Classic question. Why should we study all these geography and all that in the 5th canto? It's so boring. The reason is we should understand that there are so many places in this material world you don't want to go to. Any place that it might look very attractive, but you must not desire to go there. Your knowledge should be after attaining eternal life. So this entire Vedic scheme in all these scriptures is to educate men in attaining that eternal life. We should understand about this universe, and we should despise it, and we should desire to go to the spiritual world. So the formula to success, as explained in this verse, is to take Krishna Bhakti without any compromise, and that is the only way to attain success. So this is the summary of these 3 verses. But before we give the summary, another story of 2 personalities whom you can relate to, who ultimately employed the formula of success, but initially they were stuck in the Maya of this world. 2 personalities from Srimad Bhagavatam. One is King Yayati and the other is King Pururava. Initially, when the narrative of Yayati and Pururava comes, you feel very sad for them. Oh, why are they stuck like this? The story of Yayati, if you can brush up your memory a little, Yayati's story is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. He enjoyed his youth. He enjoyed his youth with his wife Devayani and Sharmishta. And his desires were insatiable. He just wanted to enjoy more and more and more. So he requested the youth of his son. He went and asked his sons, and finally, his last son gave his youth to his father so that his father could enjoy. So he went on enjoying. He enjoyed for several years. Okay, it did not stop because desire is like that. It is it's called as mohajal. It's like that. So it just entices you, and you just want to keep enjoying this material world. Our desires can never be fulfilled. So it goes on and on and on. And then one fine day, he wakes up. He understands that he's been wasting all his life. And he goes and he talks to his son, and he tells his son, oh, I've been so foolish. And he desires to retire, take back his old age and retire. And then he calls his wife, and he tells her in a very cryptic way. He tells her the story of a she-goat and a he-goat, saying that a he-goat was very addicted to his wife, and they just wanted to enjoy life, and they totally forgot about the purpose of life. So then he told his wife that actually he's the he-goat and she's the she-goat, and they have to really concentrate now about the ultimate goal of life. So after so many years, he came to the realization, and he attained perfection. Success story. Yes, he attained perfection by the process of Krishna consciousness. Another story is discussed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the story of King Pururava. Now this Pururava, he's also same category like King Yayati. He was also very addicted to Urvashi. Urvashi was his wife. So he was very, very fond of her. And in fact, Urvashi, after giving birth to children, she wanted to go back to the heavenly planets. From time to time, she would come once a year and she would spend some time with him and go back to the heavenly planet. And this was happening for a while. King Pururava he was very attached to her, that he gave up his life ultimately, towards the end, when the Treta Yuga began. Because of him, it is mentioned that he took 2 Arani pieces of wood and he rubbed it, and then he started the Treta Yuga. Meditating on his wife, he went to the heavenly planet. Okay, so he was so attached to her that at the point of death, he was meditating on his wife. He was not meditating on Krishna. He was meditating on Urvashi, and he goes to the heavenly planet to be with Urvashi. So even at the end of life, unlike Yayati, he didn't come to his senses. He still wanted to go to heaven to be with Urvashi. And then in heaven later, in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in Aila Gita, he realizes how much time he has wasted in life. He's just wasted and wasted and wasted, and he didn't think about Krishna till the end. So then he comes to his senses. He sings the entire Aila Gita, and then in the Aila Gita, he expresses his frustration of this material world. And he thinks, oh, I wasted so much. At least now I must invest in Krishna consciousness and attain perfection. So these stories of these great personalities, actually they are great, okay? They really took up the process of Krishna consciousness ultimately. They are great. So these stories, they remind us that at no point in time should we just get diverted by things of this world. We should always keep it in the back of our mind that the ultimate goal of life is to attain perfection in Krishna consciousness. So that is the aim of life. So this is the formula for success, to take Krishna Bhakti without any compromise. And that is indeed the only way. And Yayati and Pururava, better late than never, right? They were very late, but still, ultimately, they were able to perfect their life. So let's summarize today what we saw. We saw verses 12 to 14. So 12th verse gave an overall idea of what Sambhuti and Asambhuti is. Asambhuti refers to the demigod. Sambhuti refers to the absolute. Absolute means the independent absolute. There is only one personality who is completely independent, and that is the Supreme Lord. And it also spoke about the misconceptions that one may have about the absolute truth, that one may think the absolute is impersonal. Then we also saw the problem with pseudo-religionists. That is what we saw in our first verse, the 12th verse. The 13th verse, we saw the results of Sambhuti and Asambhuti. Different paths lead to different destinations. Different paths cannot take you to the same destination. Which is the destination we should be interested in? We should be interested in the ultimate destination and understand that Krishna is the source. So we should be interested in going to Krishna, in going to Goloka Vrindavan. And we saw that devotional service to go back to Godhead can be attained by the process of chanting and hearing. Then in the 14th verse, we try to really crack what Sambhuti and Asambhuti is. We should understand this material world is impermanent. We should be detached. Real life is eternal, and real life means attaining the spiritual world. The formula to success is to take Krishna Bhakti without any compromise. So that is the summary of these 3 verses. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions or comments, we can take that now. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Beautiful session. Beautiful stories you narrated. And especially by brushing up our memories of Bhagavatam stories of King Yayati and Pururava. Yeah, so much to learn, so much to learn. Thank you. Thank you. Your presentation was awesome. And
thank you. Now the session is glowing with your association. Thank you for coming.
no, it's all because of your potency, not mine. But thank you.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Danvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Wonderful presentation, Mataji, and very beautiful slides. And love the way how you're coming out of the slides. It's so nice to see you again, and very beautiful pastimes that you narrated. And as usual, you're one of the best storytellers that we have. And it's so nice to hear about all of them and how it is very important to be focused on our destination, Mataji. Mataji, there was a Mataji, I think Pankaj Patel's iPhone. They were trying to unmute, I think, but we couldn't hear them.
Thank you so much, Indulekha Mataji, and thank you for telling about narrating stories, giving some inputs, giving a call. Thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you for your help.
Hello.
HG Preethivilasini Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Very, very beautiful class, Mataji. As Indu Mataji said, what a beautiful slides. I was working in the kitchen, and in between when I came, it was all cartoon, Lord Shiva picture, and everything was so pretty, Mataji. So nice. Thank you so much for such a wonderful
I very like your class, Mataji.
Thank you, Balavrinda.
And nice stories.
Vidyulaji Mataji, Vidyulaji Mataji.
Thank you for giving all the verses, Balavrinda.
Thank you, Mataji.
May
I?
Yes,
Hello.
Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Mataji. It was an excellent class and I really enjoyed it. My name is Prahlad Anandadas, and on the on the, it's my iPhone, so it says Ritz Pankaj Patel like that. The class was so nice. And, I had this small question about Aila Git, where he says, Kim Vidyaya Kim Tapsa, Kim Gnatena Sutena Va, Kim Viviktena Maunena, Stribhiryasya Manohrutam. In that verse, he's talking about Srutena. Srutena is, the first bhakti of 9 Prahlad Maharaj Bhakti. So I have always wondered whether he is referring to Srutena means material, anything Grambya Katha Srutena, or sometimes, whether Krishna Katha can be helpful there that way. So I was just wondering about that sloka, which he speaks in Aila Git, that, Srutena Sabda, that's the one I was wondering. Why he has put Srutena instead of, because Sruta, Sravanam is the first bhakti. So I thought this was a little controversial, or, but, you cannot doubt the Shastra. So do you have any idea about, or you can elaborate on that?
Yeah, let me actually pick up the verse and share it directly. That will be of some help. Yeah.
Kim Vidya, that's it, starts like that.
Okay. Hold on. My screen is still seen, right? How do I stop screen share? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I stopped it, Mataji.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Hold on. Let's see. We'll try to get the verse out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Kim Badram, Kim Abhadram Va. Is that what?
No. Kim Vidyaya, Kim Tapasa, Kim Gnatena, Srutena Va.
It's a 12th verse.
I'm not sure. I don't have the Vedaved ready here, but
okay. Kim Vidyaya, Kim Tapasa. I'm going to share
that's right.
Yeah,
that's the one.
Perfect. Okay, let me just share the verse. Okay, here we have it. Kim Vidyaya, Kim Tapasa, Kim Tyagena Shrutena Va, Kim Viviktena Maunena, Stribir Yasya Manohrutam. Let's see what Shrutena is. Having studied the scriptures, yes. So what is the use of big education or the practice of austerities and renunciation? What is the use of studying religious scriptures, of living in solitude and silence, if after all that one's mind is stolen by a woman? So when we talk about, see, you might be a great Pandit, you might be a great expert, you might be able to, quote verses left, right, center, and you might be, able to do Harikatha very nicely, but still, in the heart of your hearts, if that the detachment has not come and if the real attachment is not awakened, what is the use?
So Srutena, I was wondering, we are hearing Bhagavad Gita daily, Radha Govind Swami, so His Holiness. He has, he emphasizes hearing so much, and, I follow him so much. And I keep on hearing whatever Bhagavatam I could from his own lectures like that. But still, the Srutenava, it's not removing all the Rajas Tamas from my heart. So that's why I was wondering whether this sloka applies to, practitioners like us as well, who are trying to hear Srimad Bhagavatam Krishna Katha all the time.
Yes, our hearts are not changing. And as I mentioned, we have to apply. Yeah, it's so important, right? We all say, we are practicing Krishna consciousness, we are hearing and chanting, but we have to consciously apply. That is also a significant part of hearing. Right. Yeah, that's what even I feel. Sometimes I don't apply. I need applied Krishna consciousness, not just external Krishna consciousness, which I do most of the time. Yeah.
Especially, Gruhasthas like us. I'm almost 69 here, but all my life since I got married in 1980, we are so thick with the family, especially we Indians men who are so much dependent on the woman, it's very difficult to take her out of your mind. Despite, studying and chanting and everything, she's always at the back of your mind. So I was wondering, whether Lord Krishna will have mercy on us like that. But anyway, this sloka I always wondered, that's why it came to my mind when we were discussing this. All right, thank you very much for enlightening us so much. And I really appreciate all your slides, they were so good. I'm so impressed by this satsang, this japasang. It's so fabulous kind of thing. It's like something very rare, So I'm so grateful to be the part of this satsang. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you for sharing that verse. It's actually a beautiful verse. Thank you.
Very good.
I think so. Sudevi Mataji has a question.
Our little Sudevi Mataji.
Yes, Mataji. I loved the class very much, and I liked how you explained all the 3 verses and so many points, and I liked all the pictures and Vrittasuram picture slide. I liked and all the analogies and stories. And Mataji, I have a question.
Yes.
The people who they meditate on Brahman and they think Brahman is absolute, do they really merge into the Brahman and become Krishna's energy?
No. So though we talk about merging, they actually don't merge. The identity of the jiva always remains distinct. There's no question of merging. They think they are one with the Brahman, but actually individuality is maintained even in Brahmajyoti. If that is clear to you. Just like a green bird flying into a tree. You have a green mango tree or a green neem tree or whatever tree, green colored tree with lots of leaves. Imagine a green colored parrot is flying into it. Did the parrot merge into the tree? Not really. For you, seeing from a distance from your balcony, it looks like the bird merged into the tree. But that's not the truth. The bird is remaining a bird. It didn't become a leaf or it didn't get inside the, inside the bark or something. The bird will remain a bird. So like that, externally it may appear, oh, I'm merging. You're not merging anywhere. Your identity is intact. Okay, did that answer?
Yes. And how did pseudo gurus, how did they get the powers while they're not worshipping the demigods even?
Pseudo gurus, they could be worshipping demigods to get powers. You can also get powers by certain mystic practices. So, like in the practice of yoga, there is what is called as certain siddhis you attain at one point of practice. If your practice is really good and you have reached advanced stages, you can attain powers. Okay, it is like it's yogic science. If you practice it well, you will attain it.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji, and you explained the whole class very nicely. Thank you, Mataji.
You have the intellect of an adult, Sudevi. Thank you so much.
Mataji, I'm all learning for you.
No problem.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much for the nectarian class. Mataji, my question is like how to conquer the lust. Because as you said, we have seen just now in the sloka also that even in the devotional service, even within our movement also, like certain positions like whatever, like temple administration or temple president or beyond, when we grow to such positions, people expect that sincerity and everything, but still we see that the lust and is such a one thing that people fall down. So how to conquer this, Mataji? Like sometimes it is very subtle, like we do very nice sloka recitation as you said, and we do all externally we do everything, but internally somewhere still that is there, and because of that a person falls down. So in the age of Kali, in the current social media and everything is easy. So how to overcome that, Mataji? That is the question.
Yeah. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, it's very difficult to conquer the demands of the senses. When the senses are there, it has to function, right? So the first step to conquering the demands of the senses is to cut, not the sense, but cut the objects of the senses, meaning the object of enjoyment, right? So when you make it non-available, that's the first step of controlling our senses. First, make that thing non-available to you. That is how you can actually, that's the first step of controlling the senses. Then over a period of time, your senses can be curbed. This is one formula Krishna gives. I hope I'm right. And if someone can actually quote that verse also, it'll be nice. I'm not able to get it on right away. But yes, so it depends, Prabhu. Again, this answer, we have to take it depending on time, place, and circumstance. In certain situations, for some people, depending on the person, these are all like person to person, certain things have to be tailored depending on the personality or how that person is. For some people, certain things should be gradually done. For some people, I would say just follow the formula given in Bhagavad Gita, just cut that object of enjoyment, and automatically the senses will be in control. But for some people, it could turn out to be, a problem, because they might be contemplating so much about it that they will go to any extent to achieve it, right? So these are all, these have, the formula for each person is custom made actually on a practical level, depending on the problem that a person is having, the kind of personality he is or she is, we have to tailor make some solutions and give it to that person. So how do I conquer lust? Yes, the general formula is Shravanam Kirtanam. You have to hear about Krishna, develop higher taste, do things in Krishna consciousness, curb your senses by eating prasadam. All this is common formula. We have to keep doing it over a period of time, our senses will get tuned. But one formula that is, especially if you're having a specific problem with respect to something, then that person should sit down with a mentor and find out a solution to see what will best work for that person. So I know my answer is not actually to the point, because it depends on the problem and it depends on the person, Prabhu, ultimately. So yes, and as you said, just because we are in Krishna consciousness, we are not perfect. First thing, we should all accept that we are in this material world, and material world is like a hospital. Even in today's session, I think we had that analogy in the mid-morning session, that it's like a hospital. In a hospital, you will have people who are coughing, you will have people who have high fever, you will have people with typhoid, you'll have people with all sorts of diseases. So are they all perfect? Are they all hale and healthy? No. Similarly, even in our movement, you will have everyone with so many problems. We are trying, that's all. That is the nature of this world. That is the nature of the body. That is the nature of our karma. That is how we are. But we can try, we'll take small steps, baby steps. Slowly, we can try to perfect. And if we have a specific problem with a specific sort of a, mental makeup, we can always seek out individual help. Did that help, Prabhu? Sorry if I overspoke.
Yes, Mataji, thank you. To some extent, as you said, it is a grave subject. The thing is, like when a person is in a higher position, he feels that even he doesn't need a mentor. That is the big problem. Okay, when we are in like Kanishta level, okay, mentors are there, but when a person takes a big position, and he thinks that even a mentor is not required, and that's how sometimes out of over confidence that I'm perfect, I'm good in all respects, so then the fall down starts. Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, I think, yeah, the first step to anything is humility. Like even Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, again, he tells about different Brahmanical qualities. The first thing is you should have humility. If there is no humility, then developing any other quality becomes a big problem, because you're not ready to accept, right? So, yeah. It's tricky. And with the leadership comes power, and with power, power is the most addictive thing. People say, oh, liquor is addictive, drugs are addictive. No, it's power. Power is the most addictive thing. It can just make you do anything. So the first step in Krishna consciousness is humility. And the success of any religion is to actually change of heart. It's not perfect practice. You might not be a perfect practitioner, but if you have a change of heart, then you're practicing your path perfectly, actually. So, yeah, it's a lot of internal. It's not about the external. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you very much. Hare.
Yeah, Krishna. So, Devi, did you have another question, or is it? Yeah.
Yes, Mataji. Yes, sorry. I have another question. Like the Lord, He bestows powers upon the demigods. So, is there any example in the scriptures that I can understand?
That Krishna gives the power to the demigod?
Yes, Mataji.
Krishna gives powers to the demigod, so you want an example for that. You can think about the story of Tripura. In the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is the story of Tripura Samharam, right? Canto of Bhagavatam, after the Prahalad Charitra. There is a story of how Lord Vishnu empowers Shiva to actually destroy these demons who built those 3 palaces of, those floating palaces of iron and silver and gold. Remember, there's a story in the 7th canto. So there you would see that it was actually Vishnu who empowers Lord Shiva. He gives him that weapon, and finally Lord Shiva is able to conquer these demons. You know why that story comes in the Bhagavatam? I'm trying to just pull out that story itself for you. Actually, the entire 7th canto, there is a conversation between Yudhishthir Maharaj and Narada Muni. And in that conversation, it is mentioned, here we go. I'm going to share this for you. Okay. This is the chapter. Chapter 10 of the 7th canto. Here we go. Here, this is from this verse onwards, the same question that you asked, Yudhishthir Maharaj, he asks Narada Muni. He says, exalted persons like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma could not properly describe the truth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. May the Lord, who is always worshipped as the protector of all devotees by great saints who observe vows of silence, meditation, devotional service, and renunciation, be pleased with us. Hold on. Let me see the question that Yudhishthir Maharaj asked. Here, so after he describes, after Narada Muni describes the story of Prahlad and Narsingadev, at that time, Narada Muni glorifies Krishna to be the supreme of everybody. Okay, he's the supreme Lord. He says the impersonal Brahman is Krishna himself, because Krishna is the source of the impersonal Brahman. He is the origin of transcendental bliss. He is the supreme person, and he is your constant friend and well-wisher. Okay, now after he says this, he says exalted persons like Lord Shiva and Brahma cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as such. To explain this point, he begins to tell the story of Tripura, right? Of Lord Shiva's destruction of the Tripura Samhara, which Lord Shiva did. He talks about 3 demons and how they were they built 3 dwellings. These 3 dwellings were actually invisible to even demigods. And when the demons had these 3 demons, they began to destroy the higher planetary systems. They went to Lord Shiva and they surrendered to Lord Shiva. All the demigods, they go and surrender to Lord Shiva, and they tell Lord Shiva that the 3 worlds are about to be vanquished because of these demons. So please help us. So at that time, Lord Shiva said, don't worry, my dear demigods. And he fixed arrows to his bow and he released them towards the residences occupied by the demons. Okay. Now what happened? When Lord Shiva's golden arrows hit these dwellings, the great mystic Mayadhanava, he's actually the architect of the demons, he dropped the demons into a nectarian well that he had created. Okay, so when the demons' bodies, they came in touch with his nectar, immediately the bodies became invincible and they came back to life. So like this went on. Okay, Lord Shiva was very aggrieved and disappointed, and he was not able to succeed in getting rid of these 3 demons. So at that time, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, considered how to help Lord Shiva. Then Lord Brahma became a calf and Vishnu became a cow. And finally, with the help of the Supreme Lord equips Lord Shiva with all the necessary paraphernalia like a charioteer, a flag, horses, elephants, bow, arrows. And in this way, when Lord Shiva was fully equipped by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, then he sat in the chariot and then he fought with the demons. So, my dear King Yudhishthir, the most powerful Lord Shiva at this point was equipped by the arrows given by the Supreme Lord Vishnu or the Supreme Lord Narayana or Krishna. And then he fired the arrows at the 3 residences and he destroyed the demons. So only at that time, Lord Shiva actually attained success. So Narada tells, my dear King Yudhishthir, Lord Shiva is known as Tripurari, the annihilator of the 3 dwellings of the demons. However, it is only Lord Sri Krishna who has actually empowered him in this entire story. You can see, without Lord Krishna's sanction, actually nothing can happen. Even the other demigods become functionless without the empowerment from the Supreme Lord. Lord Sri Krishna appeared as a human being, yet he performed many uncommon and wonderful pastimes by his own potency. So everyone can be purified by his activities simply by hearing about them from the right source. Again, we come back to the same point. So this is one story, which actually, it's a kind of, if you read the 7th canto, you will come to a point where you have this doubt in your mind that maybe there is some other, ultimate authority. But Narada Muni, he very clearly clarifies that it is actually Krishna who's the Supreme Lord, and he's the one who empowers any other demigod. So there is a little flow in this chapter. Maybe you can use even the Subodhini guidebook, that will help you, where you can actually connect these the story after the narration of Narsimha Leela. So that's where it is very clearly mentioned that it is Krishna who empowers everyone else. So Mataji, so Sudevi, this was one of the incidents that came to my mind, but there are several like that. And of course, the story of Rakasura, right? We discussed that. So it was ultimately Krishna who solves the problem of everyone. When Brahma gave boons to Hiranyakashipu, what happened? Nrsimhadev, he appeared, and then Nrsimhadev, he actually chastises his son Brahma. He tells, oh, you are Padma Bhu, meaning, you are born from my lotus, like from my lotus navel. So you are celebrated as Padmaja or Padma Bhu. But don't get too proud because you're my son. You should not make such mistakes. You should not give boons to demons. So Nrsimhadev, he chastises Brahma like that. So there are many stories like this which prove that the Supreme Lord is Krishna and he's the one who's giving powers to everyone. Okay, so Devi, did that help?
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Dandavat Pranam, Mataji, may I speak a little add to that, if you allow me? Yeah. Regarding Lord Krishna empowering demigods, the Brahm Samhita, Brahmaji, gives so many, like he says about Ganpati, he says, Ganeshi yat pad pallav vigam mridhai kumbhudam de pranam samasagadadiraja. Vignan vihantum malamasya jagatrasya govinda. So he described like Srushti Sthiti Pralay Sadhan Sakti Rekha Chaya Vyasya Bhuna Vibharti Durga. Ichhan Rupam Apsatyasta. So all Brahmaji's prayers in Brahm Samhita is propounding the same truth that, ultimate power is Lord Sri Krishna, and all these are his delegated powers through which, they work like executive officers of maintaining this material world. So this was the thought came to my mind. Sorry for interrupting.
So well, I mean, it was the perfect answer actually. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, the Brahma Samhita prayers give the answers.
all demigods are kind of prescribed. In fact, I go to the Sanatan Mandir here in Las Vegas, and there are all these demigods there, and Lord Krishna in the center. But I teach people, my friends, that we should pray to each of these demigods according to what Brahmaji is praying. Like Ganeshji, you say, and Shankar Bhagwan, you say Kshiram Yatha Devikar Vises Yoga Sanjayate. Like that. If we pray to them, they are more pleased than their own devotees and give us Krishna Prem. Like that. So that's what I thought about us telling about this. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you for your inputs. Okay. So if there are no other questions, I think it's time we can end. Thank you so much for the wonderful inputs, Prabhu, and everyone else for the beautiful inputs and the lovely questions. We can end the call here. Thank you.
वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय श्री ठाकुर की जय प्रीतिविलासिनी माता जी की जय
All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to all the assembled devotees.
Hari.
all
And